My name is Max Lyons. I play Division I golf for Marquette University. As a high schooler, when preparing to play college golf, I think the biggest focus that I knew would be important for me to separate myself from the other players would be mainly ball striking and iron game. I think that that's one of the biggest ways to bridge the gap between being a good player and a great player coming to college is really taking time on the range to work through swing thoughts and really just hone in ball striking, because if you're able to place the golf ball in very precise spots coming into the green, you have an advantage on the competition. And there's a lot of other areas like short game and putting that maybe everyone is mostly similar at that stage, but I think ball striking is something that I really focused on with my coach in high school and really allowed me to elevate my game in that way. I think one of the most simple pieces of advice that I've always took to heart is that at the end of the day, golf is a sport I play. It's not who I am. That really frees you up to be able to compete for something bigger than yourself, knowing that whether I shoot 67 or 77, I'm still going to be loved and supported by the people around me. And golf isn't really my identity. I think that's something that's allowed me to take my focus off of my performance and allow me to play more relaxed. But also, I think one big thing that my dad always wanted to emphasize is golf tournaments are very long. They take a long time, sometimes 3 days, sometimes 4 days. And a lot of players maybe struggle when they try to get too greedy or too hasty with their process or trying to make birdies quickly, as opposed to knowing that the tournament is very long. And all these tournaments we play in, some days are 10-hour days where we're playing 2 rounds in a day. And I think the most important thing is staying patient. I think that's something that a piece of advice that my mentors, my parents, and my coaches have emphasized is making sure that I'm trying to be the most patient person on the golf course, letting things come to me instead of trying to push the initiative and do something that maybe the situation doesn't call for. So I'd say those two things are probably the biggest pieces of advice, and from my mentors as well as coaches. Some of the top challenges that I'd say I faced was a little bit less of the physical and more of a timing situation. I played baseball and hockey up until my freshman year of high school and didn't really start playing competitive golf until my freshman year. So there was a huge time gap between a lot of the other players my age and myself. I only had 4 years to get myself prepared to play college golf, whereas a lot of these kids grew up with swinging a golf club when they were super young and had played in different U.S. kids golf tournaments, as well as just kind of playing with their friends on the side. But golf wasn't really a big part of my life until freshman year. So when that challenge, I kind of had to face that head on. And I think just outworking everyone was something that wasn't an option. I had to do it if I wanted to play at the next level. And practicing more than everyone, practicing more efficiently than everyone, getting more reps in, and like I said, being more precise with how I'm going to allocate my practice time. I really didn't have time to waste in high school if I wanted to play at the next level. So really being specific with how I practiced, how I worked with my swing coach, what we worked on, as well as specifically identifying what tournaments made the most sense for me to best take that jump and win these tournaments. So my name is now on a larger scale when it comes to recruiting. I think because I was behind the 8 ball, it required me to really lock in and not just go to the course and hit balls or go to the putting green and smack some putts around, but I really need to be extra precise with how I allocate my time, because it was either that or I don't play a sport in college, because baseball and hockey were out the window at that point. So just really, I'd say that challenge did take a mental toll on me and my family, just not really knowing whether I'd be playing Division I sports, because baseball and hockey were such a big part of my life. But I think when I realized what my objective was and what the challenge was, just facing it head on and knowing I'm going to have to say no to certain things in my life if I really want to play college golf. So just saying no to certain things and saying yes to practicing as hard as I can and as much as I could. Yeah, that's a great question. When it comes to recruitment, I was kind of towards the latter half of the COVID phase. And with recruitment, it was kind of the worst situation for anyone wanting to start playing a sport and trying to get recruited, because when COVID happened in 2020, that's when I started to play a lot better, and my results were being recognized by a lot of these coaches kind of towards my junior year of high school. When I started to score well, my performance was a little bit better, and bam, COVID happened, and a lot of these schools were not able to host recruits for visits, and a lot of coaches were required to strictly meet with me virtually. So that was a bit of a challenge, not really getting to meet a lot of coaches face to face, but instead having to use an online platform to get to know these coaches as best as I could. When it comes to golf, it's less of there's a qualitative aspect of recruitment where the coach wants to see how we react to certain situations, our mannerisms on the golf course. But when it comes to golf, it's more of a quantitative type of recruitment where your scores kind of speak for themselves. And thankfully, over my junior and into senior year, I was able to score really well in tournaments and win a handful of tournaments that made it easier for coaches to see me and become interested in getting to know me. And over my recruitment, I did take 1 to 2 visits to universities, but like I said, most of my stuff was virtually. So, and then transition to the second part of your question with regards to how important off the golf course or certain type of personalities plays into recruitment. I think the biggest thing was when I was meeting with these coaches virtually, it was a lot of just getting to know me and what I was passionate about outside the golf. They obviously know that if I want to play Division I golf, I must love golf. I must love the grind and practicing, but they wanted to get to know me on a personal level. And I think that's what stood out to me is a lot of these coaches had to adapt how they recruit. And in my experience, the biggest part of my recruitment was getting to know these coaches on a personal level through a camera. And that was a bit of a challenge, but I really liked it. And that's kind of how I ended up choosing my school. Is my coach was very intentional with how we spent our virtual time, and he saw my scores and he knew that I was the golf type he was looking for. He just wanted to get to know me on a personal level. So that's kind of how my recruitment went. Yeah, I'd say the most tangible thing or piece of advice / strategy that I've kind of gained over my years in college as opposed to junior golf is something called course management. And I think you kind of understand what course management means as a junior golfer, where to best place the golf ball. It's not just about the golf shots you hit, it's about where you're hitting, where you're aiming, what situations and what hazards you're avoiding. And I think course management has been the biggest way that I have gained an edge on the competition. Everybody in college golf is a really good ball striker, really good putter. They have incredible short games. They hit the ball miles. But I think the biggest differentiator that I've came to understand is course management. A lot of these players, especially on these long 36-hole days, might, like I mentioned earlier, get a little bit antsy or too aggressive in certain situations, which could leave them in horrible spots, short-sighted, with not a lot of green to work with on their approach shots. And I've noticed that if I can do my work before a tournament to go through our yardage books and really prepare the best way for me to attack certain hole locations, that's already an advantage going into a tournament. And that's a confidence booster, knowing that if I've prepared for this golf course better than everyone, the way I'm going to mentally strategize, where I'm going to miss, where I'm going to aim certain shots. And in some situations that might mean aiming completely away from a certain pin because there might be a certain horrible situation on the other side of the pin. So stuff like that has been ways that I've gained confidence going into tournaments, knowing that the preparation I've done gives me an edge. And then I'd say another tangible thing is putting. I think all really good college golfers who are winning golf tournaments are mostly great putters. It's hard to win a golf tournament if you're not really dialed in inside 8 feet. And I think that's been an area of interest, is increasing that from 8 feet and in percentage, because statistically the tour average outside of 8 to 10 feet is relatively minuscule. There's not much separation between everyone, but inside 8 feet, if you can really hone in those short putts and make a very high percentage of them, that's where you're going to gain strokes on the field. So that's been kind of an area of focus for me, is course management and then putting inside 8 feet. Balancing academics with a very busy golf schedule is one of the hardest things I've noticed in college so far, one of my biggest challenges. And I think it really takes saying no to a lot of things. We're traveling 4, 5, 6 days in a row and getting back to campus and having only 1 to 2 days of class before leaving on another trip. So it really requires a lot of time management and speaking with professors ahead of time on what lectures are going to be missed, what content will be missed, potentially exams, quizzes, presentations that need to be structured around our tournament schedules. And I think the biggest way that maybe I've faced that challenge is at the beginning of each semester, I'm very intentional with professors, letting them know my situation, but not just letting them know that, oh, I'm an athlete, I would love some special treatment. That's not the way to go about it. It's instead letting them know that I'm willing to put in extra work because this class is a priority to me, as well as golf. A lot of professors see athletes take advantage of their situation as an athlete and try to get out of certain things, but I find a better way to go about it is to be just super intentional with my professors, letting them know my traveling situation, but also letting them know that their class is a priority, and I'd love to find ways to get ahead and communicate with them on a weekly basis to let them know that I would love to get ahead on certain material or meet with a tutor about certain material. So I've noticed that it's a challenge, but I think professors really love it when we're able to kind of take an initiative in letting them know that we want to be proactive in that process. But then again, a lot of my teammates are business majors as well, with a couple of them being finance, similar to myself. So we're able to help each other out on the road with certain material. And then our athletic academic advisors are awesome about if we need to schedule a tutor, schedule time to look over our class schedules. They're always available, and it's been a very easy process in that regard. Some maybe final words of advice for high schoolers, maybe going through a similar process to what I went through. I'd go 2 routes with this. The first one being kind of what I said at the beginning: golf isn't everything. And if you are finding your identity in a sport, you're always going to be left a little bit empty, because no matter what you do, you're always going to fail at some point. Even the number one players in the world eventually fail to win a golf tournament. So the first thing I'd say is never find your identity in your sport, because it will always leave you wanting more and chasing more. And I think that's a little bit reassuring, is like, we're not on this earth to play a sport. And that's so far from our purpose here. So that's a comforting thing for high schoolers wanting to play at the next level, is if you do, that's awesome. But if you don't, there's nothing against that. There's nothing, it's all about just the journey of loving to practice, loving the grind. And the other avenue, I'd say, for a more tangible way to encourage or give some advice to high schoolers or junior golfers, is it's going to take a lot more work than everyone else. And if you're willing to just kind of do the bare minimum when it comes to practice or your habits or your daily routines, you're probably going to get an average result. If you're willing to put in average, you're probably going to get out average. So I think, and a piece of advice would be, it's not guaranteed that if you practice more, you're going to play better, but the only way to guarantee that you're giving yourself the best opportunity is to put in much more time than everybody else. You got to be intentional with how you're waking up, your AM routine, your PM routine, how you're scheduling your day to be most efficient at practice. It might seem a little excessive to some younger people, but that's another piece of advice in college I've understood, is taking time every night to plan my next day today and plan exactly how I'm going to allocate every hour of my day so that I can prepare better than everybody else in the country. Because in junior golf, there's a lot of high school golfers or other players that maybe aren't being as meticulous with their schedule. And I think a way you can gain an edge and a way you can prepare better than them is to just be that much more efficient and precise with how you're practicing. And you really have to want it. If it's kind of just something that is a fun part of your life, if you don't truly want to play at the next level, there's a good chance you might not. So being uncomfortable with how much you want it. If it's comfortable, you're never going to get anything out of it. So putting in long hours, really getting on that putting green and working on those short putts, like I said, I'd say those are the biggest things that I could use to encourage a junior golfer or high school golfer. Work with a handful of awesome NIL brands and partners related to golf and also completely unrelated to golf. And I think when it comes to the NIL space, because we're so busy with what we do, it's important to make sure that you're not just doing things that don't make sense for the heck of it. You got to make sure that if you're going to allocate your time to a specific campaign or specific company, you're making sure that it aligns with what you believe in, what you're passionate about. I've been fortunate enough to work with some golf apparel brands who have been awesome partnerships to promote. There was also a Phoenix-based company that produced golf clothing that really hit home to me, being someone from Phoenix, and that was an awesome partnership because they understood where I came from. I understood kind of their startup, and that was an awesome experience. But then there's been some unique type of food or supplement brands that I've been fortunate enough to work with and promote through social media that has been awesome. As a college athlete, there are plenty of supplement type things that help with my performance and have really aligned with my lifestyle in that regard. So that NIL space has been awesome, and I think it's just managing it. There's a lot of really good platforms out there that allow student athletes to find NIL deals or search up and match with companies that best fit their interests. So I'd just say keep your options open and just make sure you're never saying yes to too many things and you're really being intentional with what brands or companies you partner with. So Marquette, our golf team, is officially sponsored by Nike, which is our clothing brand, and then TaylorMade is our team sponsorship, which is our golf club manufacturer. But players are also allowed to use other clubs of different companies. As a junior golfer, I was fortunate enough to be individually sponsored by TaylorMade, so the transition to Marquette and TaylorMade was easy for me. But there are some other players on my team that were using different clubs back in junior golf, but then made the switch to TaylorMade because it's a little bit easier for us to get TaylorMade clubs. So, but everybody has their own preference. But yeah, TaylorMade's what a handful of colleges use, as well as, yeah, here at Marquette.